All right, terrific. Well, welcome everyone, and to this webinar. And what I'll do first is open us in a short prayer, and then we'll be off and running. Okay, let's pray. Lord, thank you for this opportunity and for the willingness and desire of everybody to join in this and take time out to listen to our BGU president talk about our BGU concepts and our alumni theme. Pray that you would use this video to reach others, and that we're able to further your kingdom. We ask this in Christ's name, amen. Well, great. We are delighted to have Dr. Bryan McCabe join this BGU Alumni Association webinar. And he's going to expound a bit on this notion of everywhere to everywhere, what the Alumni Association is carrying forward as our 2023 theme. And we'll have another webinar in November as well. And we're also going to be looking forward to let's see. We'll be looking forward to the annual meeting in 2024. Okay, so again, we're delighted to have Dr. McCabe, and prior to becoming president of BGU, he was the chief academic officer for BGU. So he knows the ins and outs of the organization, and he's also, I believe, you're currently pastor at Northway Christian Community Church, right? Okay? So a university president, a pastor, and with a family. So somewhere, I'm sure he finds time to sleep. But we're absolutely delighted to have him, because as we think about this BGU direction that he'll talk about, as we think about our themes, one of the things that the Alumni Association wants to do is make sure we're aligned with BGU so that we can really fully support the university's mission. So without further ado, I will turn it over to our BGU president. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leroy. And I just appreciate all the leadership you're providing with the Alumni Association. This is a big part of my role as the new president, is engaging our alumni. And that's why I jumped on this opportunity here to spend some time with all of you. And thank you. I know we have some of you joining us in the middle of the night, early morning hours. It's just amazing the commitment that so many of our graduates have. And it's a joy to be with you today. I know your time is valuable. Just so you know what to expect, I think we arranged for this webinar to be around an hour or so, and I will try to make it as interactive as I can. I'm going to share some stories and some vision, and I'm going to take some pauses in between, and I want to hear from you, feedback, and I'm always learning from you and from the different locations where you're located. So thank you for having me today. I think I should be able to, Dr. Herr, can you allow for a co-host for me so I can share?
Yeah, you should be able to share now.
All right, wonderful. So we'll just kind of start here. As you mentioned, the theme this year is from everywhere to everywhere. Just a little more about me. I am a 2012 BGU grad. I went through the Doctor of Ministry program, and I was so fortunate to study directly under Ray Bakke and Randy White and others. I did city immersion courses in different parts of Latin America, and Seattle, and Fresno, New York City. There were lots of different learning opportunities I was fortunate to have, and it was in those courses where I truly saw this everywhere to everywhere concept. So many of you who went through BGU's program, you know, whether it was an online course or whether it was a city immersion, you were immersed in studying with people from different parts of the world, and you meet so many different interesting people. you realize how globally interconnected we are and how important it is to have the emotional intelligence to be able to connect with people across cultures and different environments. So this is what BGU was kind of founded on, and this is also a big direction that we are going. As Leroy mentioned, I am a pastor in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so that's where I'm coming from now. For my role leading BGU, I go to Dallas more often. I travel there several times a year, but for the most part, I'm able to use my city here, Pittsburgh, as a jumping off point. My church is very wonderful. I'm not the lead pastor of our church. I'm one of the pastors on staff, and I lead some different projects for them, but they're very flexible on my time and donating my time towards BGU. They love the mission that we have, and they're super supportive. So I'm thankful for the setup that I have. Want to try to move through some of my content, and I thought I would start with a story. Hopefully you can see this slide okay. I thought this captured really well the everywhere to everywhere approach that we are having at BGU. I took this photo, or actually someone took this photo of me. This is from Tegucigalpa, Honduras at the end of June of this summer. This is at a city immersion that BGU held there in Tegucigalpa. I've been to Tegucigalpa many times. I think this was my 6th trip there. I love going there. Honduras is a beautiful country, and that capital city is a beautiful capital city. And this story, I think, just captures everywhere to everywhere pretty well. If you look closely, some of you might recognize these are some of our current students. These are actually some alumni. I'll tell Pastor Carlos's story in just a moment. It's a pretty fascinating story. But in this picture are some alumni who audited this course and some students that were taking the course for academic credit. We have Funmi, Kalade, and Olu, who are a part of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, based out of Nigeria. They have sent pastors and missionaries all over the world to plant churches. They've planted more than 500 churches in the United States and Canada. And we met one of their pastors who had planted a church in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, named Pastor Olu. And I thought it was so fascinating. Here I was from the United States in Honduras with pastors from Nigeria and also local pastors who were Nigerian there in Honduras. And sure, that really shows how everywhere to everywhere is taking off, this concept. We also have in this picture Lennox, who was a student. He's a pastor in the Cayman Islands, but he is originally from Jamaica, and he is developing a global ministry of impact as a part of his ministry. We have Gavin and Marcia, who currently live in the United States, but they're from Guyana and the southern tip of South America. We have many students and graduates from that country. And then we have Katie Berube pictured. I'm not going to name every student because, but I'm just kind of making a point. She's from the United States originally. She's there in Guatemala, next door to Honduras, and where she started up a social enterprise where she's empowering local indigenous women in Guatemala to run a business there. And here she was in Honduras studying. So this was a really unique group. There were other leaders there that were just so interesting. And we all learned from each other. We studied the transformational leadership perspectives. And I can't tell you how much I learned from my global friends who had come to Honduras to share their experiences, to learn together. It's a beautiful melting pot of perspectives, of ethnicities, of men and women, of local leaders, of global leaders, all learning from each other, all poised to see what is God doing and how can we be more effective as leaders. So I'm the big, tall person standing in the back. Closer to the front row, I won't be able to point him out, but there is a pastor named Carlos, and he's in the front row with his wife. Carlos's story was very interesting. We visited his church on Sunday morning, and after the worship service, I have to say, first of all, it was a huge church. I have never seen so many young people in a church service before. The music started playing, and there were probably 200 or 300 young people, teenagers, little children who ran to the front of the sanctuary, and they were dancing and praising. And then people from the community just started pouring in during this worship service. it was really remarkable to see the joy and the passion and how people were worshiping God. And after the worship service, he told us his story, his testimony. He said that when I won't be able to tell the full details. Hopefully someday you'll be able to hear it directly from Pastor Carlos. But he was born in Honduras, and his mom and dad were not a part of his life, so he was raised by a relative. He ended up getting into a lot of trouble as a young person, and he got involved in a gang called Barrio 18, which is one of the largest street gangs in the world, and it's made its way all throughout North America and Latin American countries. And their main rival is MS-13, another really big street gang. He made his way to Los Angeles, California, as a part of this gang, and he rose up through the ranks, so much so that he was able to travel between New York City and Los Angeles regularly, committing violent crimes, assaulting people, doing a lot of the things that gang members do. And he showed us while he was giving his testimony this big Barrio 18 tattoo that he had in Roman numerals on his chest. And so he really had an interesting story. So he said that he assaulted 16 people in New York City. And while he was assaulting the 16th person, he had a gun. And the person said, "Please don't kill me. I have a family. I have children." And he said for the first time, and as long as he could remember, he sensed empathy for the first time in a long time. And that started him on a path. He was arrested. He was thrown in jail. Immediately, he got in a fight with two inmates who were also gang members from different gangs. And so he ended up facing 48 years in a maximum security prison for his crimes. And so he was there, and he was in solitary confinement after getting in a fight with other gang members. And he said in the middle of the night, it was really lonely in there. He said, all I can describe is this massive come to Jesus moment. He didn't have any really background in faith. And he said he felt so strongly, he just had a dramatic conversion experience. Jesus showed up to him in a dream. And so he said, "Jesus, if I ever get out of here, I'll dedicate my life to you, to serving you. I'll go wherever you want me to go." And so he was there for 8 years as a Christian, a new Christian. He was discipled by different ministries that would come into the jail. And miraculously, his sentence was shortened to 8 years. He was released, and he was immediately deported back to Honduras. And when he got back to Honduras, he said, "Okay, I have no family, no friends here. I'm not going back to the gang." So he just started going to prisons there in Honduras and meeting with gang members and trying to convert them to become Christians. And 3 gang members managed to get a weapon, and they took him behind a building in the jail, and they were ready to kill him. And he said, "You can't kill me because Jesus told me I'm supposed to be here and doing this, and Jesus wants you to do this with me." Those 3 gang members ended up converting to Christianity that day, and he discipled them. When they got out of jail, they were his church planning team. And since they couldn't go back to the gangs, he would help them find jobs. He would help them to get back on their feet, basically be their whole family, find a place to live. And that's how their strategy for church growth started, was finding gang members who would become former gang members. And I got to experience this, actually. He invited me to come back and preach at their Wednesday night church. And so I showed up thinking, oh, the Wednesday night service is small. No, there were more people at the Wednesday night service than there were at the Sunday service. And so I preached a sermon on the book of Philemon, a little letter from the New Testament. And I just kind of preached, hey, God is for you no matter what your circumstances. Just like Onesimus ran away to the big city to hide out, and Philemon came to Christ, and Onesimus came to Christ through Paul's ministry. That's a great example of everywhere to everywhere, by the way. Philemon meeting Christ through Paul's ministry, and Onesimus meeting Christ. It's a beautiful story of reconciliation. It's a beautiful story of everywhere to everywhere, God's global mission. And I said, if you're here today, we got to go after and get the Onesimuses of our world, those who are lost and who are looking for purpose and meaning in life. And then the pastor got up and he said, and if you're here today, my translator was saying in Spanish, if you're here today and you've been running from God, you need to come forward today. It turns out that they had been doing more gang outreach that week in a new neighborhood, and a whole bunch of people were there for the first time. All of these young people started coming forward and accepting Jesus. And I thought, oh my goodness, look how God is working from this one pastor to go from a little small tiny part of Honduras to Los Angeles to New York City, back to Honduras, and now he has open invitations into Guatemala. His ministry is starting to become connected all throughout Central America and beyond. And it's a really beautiful story of redemption and healing, and how God can take the ashes of a person's life and to turn it into something beautiful. It's also a remarkable story of how God is working between cultures, between different geographic locations to accomplish his global mission. And our group that was there was so inspired by his story. I wanted to make sure I shared that as an example of how we can learn from leaders like that. So ordinarily, there's a narrative. I'll give an example of a narrative in the United States. Because we have so many people coming who are migrants coming from Central American countries like Honduras, the narrative for a lot of people in the United States is Honduras is a bad place that you don't want to go to. It's broken economically, it's broken culturally, it's a God-forsaken place, and stay away from there. But at BGU, we teach that there's always beauty and assets everywhere we go, especially in cities, and we can learn from what God is doing in hard places. That there might be a negative narrative that's going on culturally, but God is always on a redemptive mission to redeem every person in every place. And when we go to a place like Honduras, we can learn from God's beautiful transforming work there by meeting leaders that are there and learning from each other from different global perspectives. And then we can take those learnings, as Ray Bakke used to call it, the medical model of ministry. We can then go back to our own countries and our own cities, our own churches, our own businesses, our own nonprofit organizations, our own government work and politics, and we can be a part of transforming the places where God calls us to live and to go. So we are truly a part of changing narratives around the world that used to be colonial. Here's the haves and the have-nots. You know, it used to be, that's a place that you don't go, or that's a place that you do go. Now it's like all bets are off, and we're globally interconnected with the internet and through WhatsApp and through Zoom meetings like this. We have the opportunity to see what God is doing in places that we never knew were really happening before. It's a beautiful time to be a leader. It's a beautiful time to be positioned as a global institution. And this is just one example I wanted to share to get you excited. By the way, I sent an email out to our alumni last week inviting everyone to come to Phoenix if you wanted to, but these city immersions are such a great way for you to brush up on your transformational leadership training and skills, but also to bring other leaders from your networks to come and see what God is doing in cities like Honduras. Next year, we're going to have some really great city immersions. If you can't go to Phoenix this year, we're working on one that looks like it's going to be in Ghana. I'm still working on the final details, but early in 2024. And we will be in Seoul, South Korea later in September of 2024. And we're going to be in more places around the world as we continue to have these city immersions. So I want to invite you. You should come and be a part of learning with the rest of the world, experiencing everywhere to everywhere as God is currently orchestrating it. A brief biblical foundation. You know, this is some classic Ray Bakke teaching. He wrote about this in a Theology as Big as the City. But I often will use this as an example of everywhere to everywhere. You have this passage in the first church that we know anything about in the New Testament. This is from Acts 13. Well, it's the church in Antioch. We read about it in Acts chapter 11, and then also for the first few verses from Acts chapter 13. And you can see here, you can read through the verses there on your own, but just to highlight, the pastoral team of the first church that we really know anything about has 2 African pastors, 2 Asian pastors, and 1 European pastor. And also, they are at Antioch, a city that is at the crossroads of Europe, Africa, and Asia. So it's a very strategic city. And then as you see there, the very first thing that this church does is they set up a multi-ethnic leadership team. They understand the strategic importance of their urban environment to reach the world. And then they send out Barnabas and Saul on a missionary journey, which goes from everywhere to everywhere and inspires so many other, as you look today, billions of Christians throughout the past 2,000 years, inspired by this multi-ethnic vision, by this strategically urban vision, and by this missional vision of the early church. And what a beautiful model that is for us, from everywhere to everywhere. Many of us know and follow Jesus today because this early church understood the global impact of the gospel of Jesus Christ, empowered by the Holy Spirit. And these are things that we still teach at BGU today, the strategic importance of being multi-ethnic in our approaches. More than 70% of BGU's current students are located outside the United States. And between our certificates and our traditional programs, more than 100 countries are represented that we've had the opportunity to impact. It's truly multi-ethnic, it's truly global. And the vision for this next season is to be even more so multi-ethnic, because we all have so many gifts to share with different ethnicities and different cultures in different places. And so no one culture has a corner on the Holy Spirit or the good things that God is doing in the world. We can all learn from what God is doing, and we all bring different leadership skills and gifts to the table. Of course, the urban environment, COVID might have slowed things down a little bit, but the world is rapidly urbanizing, and Christians need to have strategies to engage cities. Those strategies have to be able to navigate the from everywhere to everywhere approach to the world, because people come and go through cities, and they're strategic for generating culture, for generating business, for engines of so many things that fuel society. So BGU is going to keep that focus. We love our rural students and our rural graduates. We love our suburban students and our suburban graduates. But we're going to continue that heart for cities because it's so important to what God is doing in the world. And of course, being missional. What does that look like to be missional and not be paternalistic, or not be just trying to impose our culture on other cultures? We'll share a little bit later if we have some time. There's plenty of cautionary stories of how from everywhere to everywhere can be extremely destructive, right? When we look at different movements throughout human history, where through violence, cultures were imposed on other cultures, or through ideological violence, religions were imposed on other cultures. So there is, shadow side to being passionate and wanting to go everywhere with whatever we're passionate about, but we have to be careful not to do more harm than good, especially if we have the power of the Holy Spirit to discern and to follow in the ways of Jesus Christ. So this is why I'm so important. Just to remind everyone, I'm so passionate about BGU's mission to strengthen leaders who steward resources with and for vulnerable people and places by means of contextual, Christian-based education, innovatively delivered throughout the urban world. This really captures well, in many ways, how we flesh out everywhere to everywhere. So we're trying to be truly global and trying to be truly urban. We're reaching the powerful and the powerless with equal integrity. That's the goal of what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do that innovatively and contextually, which means that our faculty are extremely diverse, and they are located in many different countries around the world. Our alumni and graduates oftentimes will help to, they're doing amazing work and help to kind of advance the mission of what we're doing. but we really want to be focused on, this is kind of a fancier way of saying everywhere to everywhere, but really trying to reach into these different areas. I really appreciate this mission so much. And then I'm going to share just since I'm talking so much, if you're formulating some questions or if you have some feedback, I will after I share this. This is some vision. I'm going to open it up. So this is some vision here that I am helping to implement and lead, and I'm real excited about this. We're calling it BGU 4.0. Many of you may have heard this if you heard my graduation commencement speech here this past June when I transitioned into the president role. You may have heard this or seen this in different places, but what we're really trying to do in terms of everywhere and everywhere, one of the bullet points in the flyer that was created for this webinar was about scaling. And it was about how can we scale everywhere to everywhere and continue to grow BGU in effective ways. Now, when I say grow BGU, I'm not just talking about sheer numbers of students. Arizona State University is a large college here in the United States that has said they want to reach 1 million students in the next, I think, like 10 years or something like that. And they want to do it in a variety of creative ways. That's one way of scaling. That's not how BGU is going to scale. If we have 1 million students, great. That would be awesome problem to have. But we want to scale transformation. We want to scale deep impact and scale at the rate that the Lord is calling us to do. So you can see here this vision to scale BGU's facilitated leadership development processes to serve global networks and partners in order to model new approaches of leadership development and collaboration for the rising era of urban global Christians in all sectors of society. I'll be sharing these slides with Dr. Hurt for him to share with everybody. So you'll have this vision and you'll get these slides. But you can see those were really strategic there. A couple things just want to highlight. Many of you are part of a global network or you're part of networks. My question is, how can I serve you? How can BGU serve you? How can we help you scale your impact in your city, in your country, in your denomination, in your business networks, in your whatever work that you're doing? How can we serve you and collaborate with you? And so this is not BGU has built it, you should all come to us. This is a decentralized model that goes out to serve networks and to serve you. And we have some great content and some great courses, but we really want to try to serve our networks. And so many things that we could break down there. We're trying to really be innovative with our online courses and our city immersion courses. We want to really be collaborative. You may have noticed that a lot of Christian universities and colleges have declining enrollment, and several Christian universities and colleges have even closed their doors tragically. And I think that's happening for a variety of reasons. Many times it's because they didn't innovate and change with the times to keep up with where the world is going and the educational needs and demands of where society is going. And they might have had a great tradition for 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, but if they're not innovating and keeping up with where culture is going in terms of training leaders, raising up people for this time that we live in, then they're losing grounds. Thankfully, BGU has been growing even through COVID up till now. We're slowly growing each term, and I'm thankful for that. But we're really going to have to stay on our toes to continue to grow and to reach more leaders around the world. So these 5 bullet points there, sustainability. One thing that I'm hoping to do in this season of scaling is move us from some of our early pioneers, that pioneering stage where there's not a whole lot of structures and systems in place that I love so much about BGU. Part of my role is to help us be more sustainable with our funding and with our partnerships and just building on this amazing foundation that we have. So that's a big goal that I am working towards with part of this vision. Modularization, this is really you're going to see our certificates start to really explode. We purchased a new learning management system to help us scale our certificates. And this is one area that I'm hoping BGU can serve you. if you're already doing training at your business or your organization or your church, how can BGU collaborate with you to help expand your certificates, provide, we're fully accredited. And one thing we're trying to do is helping to modularize our content. So it means getting stackable content and certificates, capturing video content that leaders can go through on their own time to help with their lifelong learning. And I can certainly explain more about that, but I don't want to go into it too much, just given a real high level. BGU needs to market our programs better. We're one of the best kept secrets around the world. So that's going to be a big part of what I'm doing to scale. And again, as alumni, if you have an idea about how we can help get the word out about our amazing programs, we have a great EMBA that I would love to see grow. We have a wonderful MATL program. Our DTL program is our biggest program, and I want to continue to scale that. Our new PhD in innovative urban research is growing, and it's becoming very popular. And we have some world-class leaders there. I would love to scale that program and see it grow to the size of our DTL program or beyond. And then, of course, we have our classic Doctor of Ministry program that is just a great program, and we have to get the word out about that. So the next one there, Master Advisors and Facilitators. This is where a lot of you can come in, and you may have some more questions about this, but we are actually right now working with a small group to train them on coaching, executive coaching, facilitation. We're investing with some of our core team members, and then we are hoping to expand that type of training out to our different alumni and our partners to incorporate into our degree programs, and also to help you with your work that you're doing. And so we want to have a group of people, and maybe you might be even interested in being a master advisor at some point once we roll this out to the broader community. But it's where you'll have these master advisors will help to coach and guide our leaders through our programs, through our certificates, and guide them in being more transformational leaders where God has placed them to lead. And then the last one here is global decentralization without losing quality. And this is what I'm calling regional ecosystems. So BGU is already, as I mentioned earlier, very much spread out around the world. And my goal in this next season, and the board has given me the green light, and our team is real excited about this, is to see how we can build up our regional ecosystems even more. So for instance, we have 50 plus graduates in Ethiopia. How could we work in Ethiopia to expand with our alumni there, the work of BGU, yes, but also have I don't know if it could be a teaching site or other ways that we could expand our footprint there, but have that effort be led by local Ethiopian leaders, not necessarily by me or someone else who's trying to export what we're doing around the world, but really strengthen networks in a place in that region of the world. So we are really open to any ideas that anyone in this Zoom might have. If you're interested in helping to develop a regional ecosystem in your part of the world where we can build even more on what we're doing to strengthen your work there and build up our presence of training transformational leaders in that region, we're really exploring those ideas. So a part of my job in the next few years, as I'm traveling around the world, if I come into your region where you are, I saw earlier we had a graduate from Kenya here, and that's awesome. We have some great graduates in Kenya. Thanks for staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning. But as I make my way through that part of the world, or if we had a Zoom meeting to dream together, would love to hear how we can strengthen and build up that ecosystem in that region of the world, just using that as one example. So to do that, it requires less top-down structure and hierarchy, which is oftentimes a traditional leadership model in higher education, and more of a polycentric leadership approach that's decentralized, that works to collaborate with and build up amazing leaders in different regions of the world, and they contextualize it according to what would work most effectively in that region of the world. So hopefully that makes sense. It requires giving up some, power and hierarchical authority, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But that's where we're heading. This is BGU's 4.0 vision for us to scale what we're doing in different parts of the world. So I've been talking for about a half hour straight. I'm going to take a pause and just see if anyone has any feedback or any comments on this vision or on anything else that I shared so far.
As you have questions, go ahead and unmute and ask away.
Dr. McCabe, this is Adele Boyce in Guatemala. I would just like to know, would there be opportunity for us to participate maybe in focus groups to talk more about these ideas, or how would you, other than in a big webinar like this, how would you like us to provide input that we might have? Thank you.
Yeah, well, first thing, Adele, I'm taking notes and getting all of your best ideas and focus groups, especially with regard to building up these regional ecosystems. I think that's a great idea, and can definitely work with the team as we start building up this momentum to do some of those. So thank you.
Dr. McCabe?
Yes.
Can you clarify the certificate program? I had a conversation with Connie, and I'm still a bit unsure that the 35 hours certificate provides professional development credits, because I'm thinking that would be attractive to potential clients. Could you clarify whether persons, if we do this, if we offer this certificate program in collaboration or in partnership with BGU, that they can be offered professional development credits?
Yes, thank you for that. That's a great question, because that really shows the promise that we could have, since BGU is a fully accredited university. We have that backing behind us to be able to offer offer credits with our certificates. To be honest, I know if you've experienced some frustration, if you reached out and we're trying to build that, it is because we're kind of building the bridge as we walk on it. So there's a little bit of some starts and stops, in terms of like what qualifies specifically for academic credit and what qualifies with different organizations for professional development credits. So we're still working through some of those details, but ideally what you described, Madonna, would be where we would want to head, is that people would look to BGU for their professional development. And then someday, if they wanted to matriculate into one of our degrees, we want that would be great. But if not, we want them to have a really positive experience, earn those professional development credits. They're more baked in some areas. So for instance, like my background in my 20s was I was a public school educator and teacher in a K-12 environment. And we had to get a certain number of hours of professional development for, as a part of that. So part of it, I think, is going to be help with our alumni like you, helping to find, bringing those worlds together a bit so that it's really solid and clear to people what they're getting into, and working with systems that are already in place. And then some things will be just starting from scratch, and just developing. So I'm not sure if that helps any, but.
It helps a bit, Dr. McCabe, and perhaps we can get a sort of timeline, because I'm eager to offer that. I know people would be attracted, that there's a Christian university, they're going to get their credits, and it will, incentivize institutions to pay for their employees to attend certificated programs like BGUs.
For sure, yes. And I see some notes in the chat of some people with some expertise. Thank you, Dr. Dunlap. I see that note there about. So yeah, that's definitely something that I think we can work out. And I will follow up. I have a note here to follow up with you and Connie on that conversation. And I don't want us to get stuck. I really want us to try to flesh this out. So yeah. Any other thoughts or feedback before we move on?
Yeah, Dr. McCabe, Judith Johnston here from Jamaica.
Yeah.
Yes. In thinking of that theme, everywhere to everywhere, I was thinking along another track that has to do with deepening, the experience of the BGU students within the context of each sphere of society. I understand, yes, the global reach and, the whole matter of developing, whether the Caribbean or, aspects of Africa and other places. But also having BGU students become more engaged in impacting every sphere of society within their ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you yet how it would happen, but within the context of these ecosystems, could we be looking at something like that? And I think too that the overtures, the city immersions, I think, like when you have a good barbecue sauce and you market it, to get as many people, involved in eating it, I think it's a wonderful product. I've been on a couple myself, and it is something that we can use to deepen people's understanding of how believers impact their worlds. And so if the overtures can be marketed in a broader context, not just within within BGU, but offered as something, if it's not going to affect students who are on overture doing their thing and so on, if it could be marketed and maybe run it on a 2-track system where people could come and be part of that and learn about these other cultures and understand what it is to transform societies. I think that's a great product. It's just one of the things that came to mind immediately, that we could maybe look at. That's something certainly I would want to engage myself, just putting it up there.
Yes, yes. Thank you. I am so passionate about taking our city immersions away from being the best kept secret in the world to a widely known outside of BGU and beyond. So I may, as we start having some of those marketing meetings, I know you're not all volunteering your time, but I did make a note that you're interested in helping out with that. So may pull you or some others in as we're having some of those brainstorming sessions, and would love to see how we could work on that.
Dr. McCabe, I'm Bobby from Myanmar.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So good to hear the story of Pastor Carlos. And then I have the same vision with church planting. My vision, transform the nation through church planting. And so good to hear from the story of Pastor this morning, Carlos, this morning.
Yeah.
And when I come to realize that Myanmar needs BGU, every area of sharing this morning really needs in Myanmar. So we really welcome BGU to Myanmar. And then one thing is that how can we collaborate together, especially education area. As you know, our education level is go down to 0 level. So to promote and to transform the nation, we agree that education is the first priority. So I love our alumni of BGU come over here and give the best suggestion and the best God's idea how to promote education together with you. And then there's our great need at the moment. So I really want to request our alumni or BGU faculty to come over here and research how can we collaborate together to promote our education in Myanmar. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's so good to hear from you. Thank you. Go ahead. Someone else.
My name is Pastor Alfred, a graduate from BGU 2012 in Kenya. And I've been doing ministry together with our alumni. And we had decided to do maybe a doctoral program in ministry, but we got stuck. And because of the expenses and the arrangement, I don't know if you have any maybe incentive to help us. Some of us, we were almost 25 of us who graduated 2021, in 2012, 21. Some have done their few, very few out of like three or three who proceeded to do their doctoral ministry. But the rest we were stuck, so we are doing ministry and we can't complain. I don't know whether you have any plan to help us. Some of us, we have decided to be teachers so that we can help our grassroots leaders. I don't know if there is a plan, maybe with the leadership of Kenyan team, so that we can also proceed to do the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, Alfred and Pastor Vavi as well. I just want to share, I understand the barriers with expenses, even though we have some pretty significant discounts, you know, in some cases up to 50% on tuition. That's still a pretty big financial barrier for many people in certain countries. So I really am committed to trying to think through how in these coming years we can remove some of those barriers. It may involve me raising some money for scholarships for certain regions of the world and different things like that. And we've had some of those conversations. So we'll definitely keep that in mind. And you know, I'm happy to discuss if you want to set up a separate Zoom or help me think through some different ways on how we can do that. I'm happy to meet with you.
Thank you, Dr. McCabe. Thank you.
Any other? Go ahead.
Oh, good evening, and thank you so much. This is Carol Loretta Tucker. During the time you were talking a little bit about global decentralization, and it was a little after that you mentioned something about changing with the times that really stood out to me. And I wanted to know, how do you, or did you say, how would you go about changing that, or how would you go about working with that, considering with all these things that's going on? Because I am thoroughly convinced that in order for us to do what we need to do in advancing God's kingdom, and I'm so glad you brought this up, we need to change with the times, but some of us are still stuck on what we did 10 years ago.
Yeah, that is such a tough one. And you know, obviously the word of God never changes, but the way that he goes about equipping his church for his redemptive mission, you know, God, we have serve a creative God and an innovative God. So there's certainly methodologies. These certificates and modularized content, I think, is one thing where we're trying to change the time. I'm trying to think where I was when we had this, which group I was meeting with, but we were talking about certificates, and there was a person who attended this meeting that I was at, and I remember it was a conference I went to for education leaders, and this person was so excited. They didn't get a degree, but they had 50 different certifications that they got that were somewhere from Google, you know, with like coding, and somewhere from other places. And they're like, I don't need a degree. And I realized at this conference, it was for tech leaders, but there's people out there innovating that aren't even necessarily Christian. I don't know if they are or not, but they're just trying to figure out how to get their message out, their training out, equip leaders, and packaged in really innovative ways. So I think that's one, you know, there's lots of ways I think we could do it, Dr. Tucker, but yeah, definitely. When I say we change with the times, you know, I really feel like our 8 perspectives on transformational leadership are powerful. They equip leaders to thrive, whether you're in business or affluent places, high poverty places. You know, wherever you find a person who's been trained in transformational leadership, you're going to find someone who is really thriving. But how we deliver that and how we get that training out into the different sectors of society, that's really what we got to think through. And I'm open to everyone's best ideas, so we can put our heads together. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you so much for addressing that question. Thank you.
We only have about 10 minutes left here, so I'm just going to move forward just briefly, and then we'll have another minute or two as we wrap here. But if anybody wants to meet with me and dream about how we can help scale BGU and put this vision into reality, That's a big part of my job now. I mentioned polycentric leadership earlier, and this is something, BGU is kind of built to be decentralized already. Many of you might be familiar with polycentric leadership. This is a big movement coming out of Lausanne and some other circles that is talking about the type of leadership that's really needed today for us to be able to do some of this vision that I've even brought up in here. So this is from a book on polycentric mission leadership. It's a really short book. It's a good read if anyone's interested in learning more about polycentric leadership. It was Dr. Hanley's doctoral dissertation that he turned into a book, a condensed version of his dissertation. but I think it just is great. But it says, instead of centralized or statist approach people often associate with corporate CEOs, I envision a model of leadership that is polycentric, leadership that is collaborative, taking input from a rich diversity of sources in order to achieve better and more representative outcomes than the traditional top-down hierarchical or managerial approach to leadership that has been prevalent for decades. Over and above collaboration, decentralized leadership allows for each region of the world and every sector of a company to make decisions that are just in time and appropriate for the local context. In this way, agency is empowered through different centers, allowing better choices to be made that are relevant to the local institution. So, this is kind of self-explanatory, and Dr. Hanley's probably way smarter than me and wrote it better than I could, but that's why I wanted to put the quote in here, just to see, this is something I think that we're going to be moving even more into with BGU, not just being global and having a presence all over the place, but truly being locally contextualized in these different regions of the world. And that's why I'm casting that vision everywhere to everywhere, because you matter. Wherever you're located, you matter. I have a role as a leader of the institution and as a catalyst for developing collaboration, for setting the table for partnerships. And I do have leadership responsibilities that are important for me. But my role is certainly not to take over the world or have BGU take over the world. My role is to serve you, to serve our networks, and to help build capacity through collaboration, kind of squishing the hierarchy and building up a global ecosystem of transformational leaders. And this vision really excites me.
Dr. McCabe, this is
Yes.
John. This is John Lewis.
Yes, go ahead, John.
Thank you. So I appreciate the concept of developing great dialogue between the networks that exist already.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a number of networks across the world, as you mentioned. But what I find is that we're not talking to one another as much as we should. And what I found is that we can duplicate a number of things that if we were to pool resources, I think we could accomplish a greater job. I think of Lausanne movement, of course, and you're well aware of that. Another organization that is on the cutting edge, I believe, is the Ramesh Richards, doing REACH. And of course, they're doing their GPRO in Panama. And so there are others like that, I'm sure, that we are aware of. And it's how to continue the dialogue, and so that we can do not have to replicate things, but we can work together in a more collaborative way. But also, in addition to that, I like your idea of the ecosystem, the regional ecosystems, because I'm aware that there are a number of, I'm speaking on behalf of the Grenada, actually. So, but the Caribbean as a whole, as we know, there are a number of graduates from BGU who live in the Caribbean region. And how can we further enhance that relationship between of course, there is the alumni organization. And so there may be possibilities how we as a region as well can network in a more effective way to develop a broader concept to encourage others from the region to become part of the training that BGU offers as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, John. I mean, you said it so well. How many of us have been a part of efforts that were supposed to be collaborative, that was really just a bunch of people talking and nothing got done? Or how many of us have showed up to those spaces and it was clearly someone else's agenda and they were just trying to get everybody to do what they wanted to do? And so, yeah, to truly be collaborative, it is a challenge, to really work together, but we need to do it. So I see a couple hands here, and we have about 4 minutes left. So I'll try. I just posted this question to get some dialogue going, but we'll go wherever we need to go for the next 4 minutes here. So Dr. Hines, go ahead, and then Jody will come to you next.
Yes, thank you. I'm just realizing that I nearly missed the meeting, yeah, because I'm just joining. However, in response to the question of Dr. Lewis, we have just started the Caribbean Regional Alumni Network, and the issues that the points that he has brought up, we are looking at that. So I encourage him to liaise with us, Madonna Doyle and myself, and also Dr. Hurt, so that we can all work together, because we have just started and we need everyone on board.
Absolutely. Thank you. We will do our best to back what you're doing and get behind what you're doing. Dr. Veller, go ahead.
Well, I teach at City Vision, and Brad is on your board, but, I've got students asking me for recommendations to graduate school for, doctorate degrees. So I always do recommend Bakke, but they shouldn't even have to be asking me. There should be a natural segue somehow that it goes from City Vision University, into Bakke DTL or DMIN programs. And there's, it's just kind of a pool of graduates. What kind of discounts can you offer? What can, we do to enrich that?
Sounds great. It sounds like I need to have a follow-up conversation with them, and we should make that seamless. You're right.
Well, yeah, it should be like they should already know I'm going to Bakke as soon as I get this master's degree. That what are if credits transfer somehow to the DTL, there should be just a seamless kind of transfer.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, I know this time flew by, maybe because I talked so much. So again, I was hoping to get some feedback, and the feedback is awesome. And I know many of you have more feedback for me. So I want to be really accessible to our alumni and to our partners. So I am never too busy to hear from you. Let's put it that way. So if you email me or want to set up a time to dream through how we can help this BGU 4.0 vision. As you can see, no one person or even small group of people could really scale a vision like that. It's going to take all of us together. And so it's really, whatever leadership I can lend to help move that forward, I'm ready to do it, and excited to meet many of you too. I know some of you I know well, and I had in class when I was a professor, and others I don't know too well. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you. And Dr. Hurt, I'm going to turn it back over to you since it's the top of the hour here.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much. I've been tracking the chats, and I was also taking notes to take back to our Alumni Association meeting, which you're all invited to attend. We will be publishing the schedule and letting people know about it. But what we hope we can do is just move forward on this, and maybe there are things that all of you all can help BGU with as we advance the kingdom. Let me close in prayer, and I will then end the meeting and close the recording. Heavenly Father, thank you for that information we got. Thank you for the thought that went into it, and we pray that that this is something that would challenge us and inspire us, and that you would give us the wisdom and drive to do our part in collaborating with each other and in having an impact in our regions. We ask, Lord, that you would consecrate the work that everybody does here, and that everyone would go forward with a fresh spirit in all this. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Terrific.
Thank you very much. Thank
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are
Great
blessed.
to have you.